The hum of machines was the only sound in the lonely orbiting research station. For months, Darren had lived alone among metal walls, blinking lights, and the endless view of stars. Life in the station was not easy, but he had chosen it. He was one of the few humans who volunteered to work in deep space under the Galactic Council. His job was simple: observe, maintain, and send reports about the distant planet below. Darren liked silence. He liked working with his own hands, solving problems, without others interfering. To him, the station was both a workplace and a home. But even he could not deny the truth. Isolation was heavy. Every day felt longer than the last. Meals had no taste, and the voices of distant stars on the radio felt like ghosts whispering. Then came the message. "Researcher Darren," the council's voice said through the communicator, "we are assigning you an assistant. She will arrive tomorrow." Darren frowned. An assistant? He had not asked for one. He thought humans were meant to prove they could manage alone. Still, the council rarely explained their decisions. Orders were orders. The next day, a small transport ship docked with the station. Out stepped someone who was not human. She was tall, graceful, and moved with strange precision. Her skin shimmered faintly like silver, and her eyes were deep violet, glowing softly in the light. "I am Lyra," she said in calm, clear words. Her voice carried a faint echo, as though it belonged to both the air and the silence. "Assigned to assist you." Darren forced a polite nod, though inside he felt unease. He had worked with machines, not with aliens. "I manage fine on my own," he replied. "Council rules," Lyra said simply. She stepped past him, already examining the station with curious eyes. From that day forward, life on the station changed. Lyra cleaned, repaired, and organized with perfect efficiency. Her movements were smooth like a dance. She never wasted words, but she noticed everything. Darren tried to keep distance, but her presence made that difficult. One evening, Darren worked late in his private workshop. The station's power core had been giving unstable readings, and he feared the council's engineers would take too long to respond. Humans had a saying, "If you want something done right, do it yourself." So he decided to build something new, something no human was officially allowed to build. On the table lay strange metal pieces, glowing coils, and delicate circuits. Piece by piece, he assembled an energy stabilizer. It was not part of his mission, but it was necessary. If the power core failed, the entire station, and him with it, would drift into darkness. Hours passed. Sweat formed on his brow, his hands moving with steady focus. The machine began to take shape, glowing faintly as it came alive. Darren smiled. This was human strength, the ability to imagine, to create, to risk. Then the door slid open. Lyra stood in the doorway. Her eyes widened as she saw the half-finished device glowing on the table. For the first time since arriving, her perfect calm broke. She froze as if the sight had locked her in place. Darren spun around, startled. "Lyra, you shouldn't be here." Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "What are you doing?" Darren felt his heart race. He had hoped to finish before anyone saw, especially her. The council forbade humans from working with advanced energy technology. They believed humans were not ready, but Darren had never accepted that. "It's a stabilizer," he admitted. "The power core is unstable. If it fails, the whole station could collapse. I can't wait for the council. I had to act." Lyra did not move. Her violet eyes locked on the device. She knew what it was. Her own people used similar machines, built with knowledge humans were supposed to lack. For a human to build one, it should have been impossible. "You should not have this knowledge," she said slowly. "No human should." Darren stood, his hands still trembling from the surprise. "Knowledge isn't given. It's earned. We learn. We try. That's who we are." Silence filled the room. Lyra's face revealed conflict. Her duty as a council servant demanded she report what she had seen. Yet something about Darren's words, and the determination in his eyes, held her still. Finally she spoke. If the Council discovers this, they will not forgive. For you. For me. Darren stepped closer, lowering his voice. Then help me keep it quiet, at least until it's ready. You've seen the readings. The core is failing. If I don't finish this, we're both in danger. Lyra looked at him for a long time, searching his face for weakness, for deception. She found none. What she saw instead was something unfamiliar among her kind. Raw human stubbornness, the will to fight against odds, even against laws. For the first time, she hesitated. She did not step forward, nor did she step back. She simply stood frozen, caught between duty and curiosity, between law and truth. The hum of the half-finished stabilizer filled the silence. The device pulsed with faint light, as though alive. Darren returned to his work, but now under her watchful eyes. He expected her to sound an alarm at any second. Instead, she remained unmoving, as if trying to understand what kind of creature a human really was. That night stretched longer than any before. Lyra said nothing, but her silence was heavy, carrying more weight than words. Darren knew the choice she faced, and he knew this was only the beginning. The station drifted in silence as always, but the silence now felt different. Lyra's presence in Darren's workshop had changed everything. She had seen his secret, yet she had said nothing. Darren worked carefully on the device the next morning, though his hands were slower than before. He kept glancing toward the door, expecting Lyra to walk in again, this time with council guards. But the alarm never came. The communicator remained silent. The station's hum continued as if nothing unusual had happened. At last, Lyra appeared, carrying a tray of food. Her movements were calm, as though nothing had happened the night before. She placed the tray on the table and stood there quietly. "You didn't report me," Darren said. His voice was low, uncertain. Lyra tilted her head slightly, her violet eyes steady. "Not yet." The words were simple, but they struck deep. Not yet. That meant she still might. Darren felt his stomach tighten. "Why not?" he asked. For a long moment, Lyra did not answer. Instead, she looked at the half-assembled stabilizer glowing faintly on the workbench. "Because I do not understand," she said at last. "You should not have the skill to build this. Humans are new to the Council. Your people lack the training, and yet you built this with your own hands. I want to know how." Darren exhaled slowly. "Humans aren't the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. But when we face problems, we don't wait for others to solve them. We try, we fail, we try again. That's how we learn." Lyra studied him, her face unreadable. "Failure is dangerous in space. Most species avoid it." "Exactly," Darren said. "But humans don't avoid it. We embrace it. Because sometimes failure teaches us the way to succeed." Her eyes flickered, like a spark of thought had lit within. She turned and left the room without another word. Days passed. Lyra continued her tasks with the same precision, but Darren noticed she lingered near his workshop more often. She asked small questions, not about him, but about the device. "What does this coil do?" she asked one evening. "It keeps the energy stable," Darren explained. "Without it, the flow would tear the machine apart." "And this?" she asked the next day, pointing to a crystal-shaped component. "It regulates output. Too much energy, and the core explodes. Too little, and the station dies." Each time she listened quietly, her expression calm, but her eyes sharp. She was learning. One night, as Darren adjusted the device, the station shuddered suddenly. Lights flickered. Warning alarms echoed through the halls. The power core was failing again. Darren cursed under his breath and rushed to his controls. "It's happening faster than I thought," he said. Lyra followed him to the control room, her steps quick but steady. "The readings are unstable," she said, scanning the data. "The core will collapse within weeks." "Then I need to finish this stabilizer," Darren said. "It's our only chance." Lyra looked at him. "You cannot hide this forever. The council monitors energy readings. They will notice. Darren met her eyes. Then help me finish before they do. For the first time, she hesitated visibly. Her hands hovered above the console, trembling slightly. It was not fear, exactly. It was conflict. She had sworn loyalty to the council, but here was a human asking her to break that oath. Why should I risk myself for you? She asked. Darren did not look away. Because you've seen it. You know I can make this work. And if I succeed, it won't just save me. It will save you too. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the soft alarms. Finally, Lyra gave a small nod. I will help. For now. From that day, she worked beside him. She handed him tools, adjusted circuits, and sometimes even offered improvements from her own knowledge. At first, Darren was surprised, but then he realized she was not only helping, she was testing him. You placed this coil wrong, she said one evening, pointing with a slender finger. Darren frowned. It should go here, connected to the regulator. Not if you want stability, Lyra replied. She moved it slightly, connecting it in a way Darren had not considered. The stabilizer pulsed stronger, steadier. Darren blinked, then laughed softly. You're better at this than I am. Lyra shook her head. No, I only know what I was taught. You discovered the rest yourself. That is unusual. Their partnership grew. Night after night, they worked together in secret. The stabilizer became more complete, glowing brighter with every addition. The station's failing power core was like a ticking clock, but they moved quickly, guided by urgency. Yet danger grew. One afternoon, a message arrived from the council, inspection team arriving within 10 cycles. Darren felt his blood run cold. Inspectors would detect the strange energy signatures of the stabilizer. They would ask questions, and if they learned the truth, it would mean punishment. Or worse. We don't have much time, Darren said. Lyra studied the message. Her face remained calm, but her eyes showed a faint trace of worry. If they find it, we are finished. Then we hide it, Darren said. That night, Darren carried the half-complete stabilizer to a hidden storage bay. Lyra followed, helping him cover it with old crates and spare metal parts. Will this be enough? She asked. It has to be, Darren said. For a moment, they stood in silence, the machine humming softly beneath its cover. Then Lyra spoke, her voice low. Why do you trust me? She asked. I could have betrayed you at any time. Darren met her gaze. Because you didn't. Because deep down, I think you want to see this succeed as much as I do. She turned her head slightly, as though to hide her thoughts. Perhaps, or perhaps I am only curious. Curiosity is enough, Darren said. In the days that followed, tension filled the station. Darren tried to work as usual, but the thought of the approaching inspectors never left his mind. Lyra grew more silent, her movements sharper, more cautious. One evening, as Darren adjusted the last components of the stabilizer, he caught her staring at him. What is it? He asked. You are different, Lyra said slowly. Your people are different. The council thinks humans are weak, not ready for real challenges. Yet you face danger with your own hands. Why? Darren smiled faintly. Because that's how we survive. We don't wait for someone else to save us, we do it ourselves no matter the risk. Lyra did not reply. But for the first time, Darren saw something new in her violet eyes. Respect. The stabilizer glowed brighter, its energy steady and strong. The machine was nearly complete. But the inspectors were almost here. Darren knew the hardest choice was still to come. And Lyra knew it too. The station hummed with its usual quiet energy, yet an invisible tension hung in the air. Darren could feel it in the vibrations under his feet, in the occasional flicker of the overhead lights, and in Lyra's every movement. Both knew the inspection team from the Galactic Council was coming soon, and with it the possibility that their secret could be revealed. Darren worked in his workshop, hands moving deftly over wires and coils. The stabilizer was nearly complete, glowing faintly with a steady pulse. Lyra moved beside him, silently monitoring his progress, occasionally adjusting a component or handing him a tool. Her precision impressed him more every day. "Are you sure this will work?" Lyra asked quietly, breaking her usual silence. Darren didn't look up. "It has to. If it fails, the power core will destabilize and the entire station could be lost. Not just me, not just us, everyone on board." She nodded slowly, but her expression remained unreadable. She had seen humans face danger before, but she had never encountered one who worked so calmly while knowing the stakes could be life or death. Meanwhile, rumors began circulating through the station. Small anomalies in the energy systems were detected by other crew members, and questions started to arise. "Did anyone notice the spike in the secondary power lines?" one engineer asked another. "Something isn't right." Lyra noticed, their curiosity too. She understood the danger better than anyone. The inspectors would trace every anomaly back to its source. If they discovered Darren's device, there would be no hiding it. "We need to move faster," she said one evening, her voice low. "The Council's inspection ship will dock in less than 2 cycles." Darren wiped sweat from his brow. "I know, I can feel it too, but if I rush I could make a mistake. This has to be precise." For hours they worked together, the hum of the station blending with the faint glow of the stabilizer. Lyra had started to trust him completely, even though her instincts warned otherwise. The human before her was not just clever, he was courageous in a way her people rarely displayed. As they worked, Lyra occasionally glanced at Darren. His hands were steady, but his eyes betrayed a quiet intensity. He was calculating, imagining possible failures, and adjusting for every outcome. She had never seen a human operate with such focus under pressure, but as the inspection ship approached, tension escalated. One day, while Darren adjusted the last few circuits, Lyra accidentally left a tool on the floor near the workshop entrance. A small technician from the station's crew noticed it and picked it up. "What's this?" the technician asked, examining the unfamiliar device. Darren's heart skipped a beat. "It's just a spare component," he said quickly, trying to appear casual. Lyra stepped forward. "Yes, just a spare. Nothing important." The technician frowned, but shrugged and walked away. Darren exhaled slowly. "That was too close." "It's getting harder to hide," Lyra said quietly. "Even small mistakes could reveal everything." "I know," Darren replied, "but we can't stop now. We're so close." The day of the inspection finally arrived. The docking bay doors opened with a low groan, and the inspectors walked aboard. They were tall, armored in sleek uniforms, their presence demanding attention. Darren's stomach tightened as they moved through the station, scanning, observing, noting every detail. Lyra stayed close to him, her movements graceful and careful. She had prepared explanations in her mind, ways to divert attention, ways to appear compliant while protecting him. One inspector approached the control room. "We have detected irregular energy signatures in this sector," he said, voice cold and precise. "Explain." Darren swallowed, his mind racing. We noticed fluctuations in the secondary systems. We're recalibrating them manually. Nothing unusual." The inspector's eyes narrowed. "Manual recalibration should not produce these readings. Continue." Darren nodded, keeping his hands steady. Lyra placed herself slightly in front of him, subtly guiding the inspectors' attention toward the station's normal systems. Her actions were smooth, almost imperceptible but effective. The inspector moved on, and Darren exhaled a quiet sigh of relief. But he knew the danger was far from over. They were walking on a knife's edge, and any misstep could reveal everything. That night, Darren and Lyra worked in silence. The stabilizer was nearly finished, but they both knew that the inspection crew might return at any moment. Every movement had to be calculated. "You are remarkable," Lyra said softly, finally breaking the quiet. "You work under pressure, yet you remain calm. Your people, They are underestimated. Darren looked at her surprised. Underestimated? Yes, she said. The Council believes humans are weak, unskilled, and unable to handle complex technology. But you prove them wrong. You solve problems they think are impossible. Darren smiled faintly. We have to. Otherwise we wouldn't survive out here. She nodded, her eyes thoughtful. I am beginning to understand. Your creativity, your courage. It is different from my people's methods. We follow rules and calculations. You take risks. Sometimes, Darren said. Risks are the only way forward. Their discussion was interrupted by a sudden alert. The station shuddered as the power core's instability reached a new peak. Lights flickered, and alarms sounded briefly before stabilizing. Darren rushed to his controls. It's accelerating faster than I expected, he muttered. We have very little time. Lyra's eyes were sharp. Then we finish now. No mistakes. They returned to the workshop, working in perfect coordination. Darren adjusted the final circuits while Lyra monitored the energy flow. The stabilizer hummed brighter, its pulse steady and strong. For the first time they could see that it might succeed. But then a voice interrupted. Stop right there. They froze. The inspector had returned unexpectedly, standing at the workshop entrance. His eyes narrowed as he examined the glowing stabilizer. What is this? He demanded. Darren swallowed hard. It's an emergency energy stabilizer, he said quickly. The power core is failing. If we don't fix it, the station could be lost. The inspector's gaze shifted to Lyra. You are aware of this device? He asked. Lyra took a deep breath. Yes, she said calmly. I am assisting him. It is necessary to stabilize the station. There is no other way. The inspector studied them both for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he turned and left, without a word. Darren exhaled slowly, relief flooding him. You took a huge risk, Lyra said quietly. Darren shook his head. No risk, just action. That's how humans survive. For the first time, Lyra seemed to smile. Perhaps humans are more capable than the Council believes, she said. The stabilizer glowed softly, its pulse like a heartbeat in the quiet station. Darren and Lyra stood together, exhausted but determined. They knew the inspectors might return and any mistake could reveal everything. Yet they had proven something important. Humans could face impossible odds, act with courage, and achieve what others thought was impossible, and the power core was still failing, ticking like a clock toward disaster. But now, they were ready. Together, they would face whatever came next. The station's hum was no longer steady. The power core pulsed erratically, sending tremors through the walls. Lights flickered, warning alarms buzzed intermittently, and the station's internal temperature rose slightly. Every system was strained to the limit. Darren and Lyra worked side by side, their movements precise but tense. The stabilizer was nearly finished, but there was no margin for error. One misconnection, one miscalculation, and the station would face catastrophic failure. They're going to dock soon, Lyra said quietly. The inspection team. If they detect anything abnormal, they'll force a shutdown. That could make the core collapse instantly. Darren didn't look up. Then we finish before they arrive. We have no choice. Hours passed. Every tool, every wire, every pulse of energy was scrutinized. Lyra adjusted components with careful efficiency, while Darren applied his human ingenuity, improvising where the stabilizer needed improvements the manual didn't cover. You should not be able to do this, Lyra said at one point, her voice low but filled with awe. Even with your knowledge, the complexity, it is remarkable. Darren smiled faintly. Humans adapt. We improvise. Sometimes that's the only way forward. But admiration could not erase the looming threat. The communication system crackled with a warning. The inspection team had launched a drone to scan the sector. Its sensors could detect irregular energy patterns, and if it traced them back to the stabilizer, the Council would descend immediately. We have minutes, not hours, Lyra said, her tone steady but urgent. Darren's hands moved faster, connecting wires, calibrating coils, and adjusting the energy output. The stabilizer hummed louder, glowing brighter, its pulse in sync with the station's trembling heartbeat. Suddenly, an alert sounded. The power core surged violently, sending sparks across the control panel. Darren jumped back, narrowly avoiding a shower of sparks. Lyra grabbed a tool and helped him steady the circuit. "This is worse than I thought," Darren muttered. "The core is destabilizing faster." Lyra's violet eyes scanned the readings. "If it fails now, the station will lose orbit. We won't survive long enough for any rescue." Darren nodded grimly. "Then we finish now, no mistakes." They worked in near silence, their focus absolute. Sweat dripped from Darren's brow, while Lyra's movements remained flawless despite the tension. Each second mattered. Each pulse of energy from the core was a warning. The margin for error had vanished. The drone passed near the workshop, scanning energy emissions. Darren held his breath. Lyra subtly adjusted the stabilizer's output, creating a temporary masking signal. The drone's sensors showed nothing unusual, and it drifted away. "Good thinking," Darren whispered. Lyra gave a small nod but didn't speak. She was concentrating too hard to allow any distraction. Then came the moment of truth. Darren connected the final circuit. The stabilizer glowed brightly, its energy flow steady and strong. He took a deep breath and activated the device. For a moment, nothing happened. The core pulsed erratically, tremors shaking the walls. Then, slowly, the stabilizer began to synchronize with the core. The surges diminished, light stabilized, the alarms quieted, the tremors ceased. "It's working," Darren said, a hint of relief in his voice. "The stabilizer is holding the core steady." Lyra allowed herself a small smile. "Remarkable, human ingenuity. It exceeds expectations." But relief was short-lived. The inspector appeared in the doorway, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. "Explain," he said, pointing at the stabilizer. Darren swallowed. "It's an emergency device to stabilize the power core. The core was failing. If it wasn't stabilized, the station would have been destroyed." The inspector's eyes narrowed. "And you did this without council approval?" "Yes," Darren admitted, "but it was necessary to prevent disaster. The protocols do not account for emergencies like this." Lyra stepped forward. "I assisted him. It was the only way to ensure the safety of everyone on the station. There was no alternative." The inspector studied them both for a long moment. The hum of the stabilizer filled the room. Its pulse was strong, steady, almost like a heartbeat. Then, unexpectedly, the inspector lowered his gaze. "You have saved the station," he said quietly. "This was extraordinary. Normally, we would enforce strict protocol violations, but the risk was real and the result is undeniable." Darren exhaled slowly. Relief washed over him. The inspector turned and left the workshop without another word. Lyra's shoulders relaxed slightly. For the first time, they could breathe. But the crisis had changed something between them. Lyra no longer saw Darren merely as a human under her watch. She had seen his courage, his skill, and his determination to act when others would hesitate. "You have proven something," Lyra said softly. "The Council underestimates humans, but you show what they are capable of." Darren smiled faintly. "It's not just me. It's all humans. We don't give up, even when the odds seem impossible." Her violet eyes met his, thoughtful. "Perhaps humanity is ready for challenges the Council never expected." The following day, word spread quietly among the station's crew. No one mentioned the stabilizer directly, but the energy systems were more stable, the alarms gone, and the station's hum was once again steady. Darren became something of a quiet hero, not because he sought recognition, but because his actions spoke louder than any words. Lyra remained at his side, assisting in normal maintenance, but she now carried a subtle respect for him and his people. The human before her had not just survived, he had triumphed where many others would have failed. Yet even in triumph, caution was necessary. The Council would eventually learn of the irregular energy patterns. They would want answers. But, for now, Darren and Lyra had bought themselves time, and time was everything. One evening, as they watched the distant planet below, Lyra spoke quietly. "Do you realize what you have done?" she asked. Darren looked at her. "I saved the station." "No," she said. "You have done more than that. You have shown that humans can act where others hesitate. You have demonstrated courage, creativity, and determination. Your species has potential the Council cannot ignore." Darren shrugged, a small smile forming. "We just do what we have to do, that's all." Lyra nodded. "It is more than all that. It is hope." For the first time, Darren understood. This was not just about the stabilizer or the power core, or even the station. It was about proving humanity's worth in a galaxy that doubted them. And in that proof, there was power far greater than any machine. The station drifted peacefully in orbit, stars glittering beyond the windows. The hum of the stabilizer was steady, a symbol of human courage and ingenuity. Darren and Lyra stood side by side, ready for whatever challenge might come next. Because now they were no longer merely a human and an alien Maid. They were partners, united in purpose, and together they could face any danger the galaxy might send. And somewhere deep in the shadows of space, the Galactic Council would soon have to recognize that humans were not as weak or unprepared as they had always believed. For the first time, hope pulsed as strongly as the stabilizer's light, steady and unwavering. The station floated quietly above the distant planet, its systems steadier than they had been in weeks. The stabilizer pulsed gently in the workshop, keeping the failing power core balanced. For now, danger had passed. But Darren and Lyra knew the peace was fragile. The Galactic Council would not ignore what had happened. The inspectors remained on board, moving through the station like silent shadows. They said little, but their sharp eyes noticed everything. Crew members whispered in corners, wondering how close they had come to disaster and what it would mean for the human researcher who had dared to do what no one else had tried. Darren worked calmly, repairing small systems, but inside, he felt the weight of the coming storm. He had saved the station, yes, but the Council cared more about rules than results. To them, he had broken laws, built forbidden technology, and stepped far outside human authority. "They'll call me reckless," he said one evening as he tightened a valve in the workshop. "They'll say I went against protocol, and maybe they're right." Lyra stood nearby, watching the stabilizer's steady glow. Her violet eyes reflected the light like twin stars. "Reckless?" she repeated softly. "Perhaps, but you saved us all. No inspector can deny that." Darren gave a short laugh. "The Council doesn't always care about truth. They care about control." She tilted her head slightly. "Then perhaps it is time someone showed them what truth looks like." The following morning, the inspectors summoned Darren and Lyra to the central chamber. The room was cold and sterile, its walls lined with glowing consoles. 3 inspectors stood before them, their uniforms gleaming, their expressions hard. "Researcher, Darren," the leader said, his voice sharp as steel. "We have reviewed the irregular energy patterns. We have examined your device. Do you deny that you created unauthorized technology?" Darren stood tall, though his heart pounded. "I don't deny it," he said. "The power core was failing. If I had waited for permission, the station would have been destroyed. I acted because I had to." The inspector's eyes narrowed. "That is not your decision to make. Humans are not permitted to work with advanced energy systems. You risked lives by breaking this law." Before Darren could speak, Lyra stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but it carried surprising strength. "With respect, Inspector, he did not risk lives. He saved them. I saw it with my own eyes. Without the stabilizer, we would not be standing here. You know this is true." The inspectors turned their gaze to her. "You admit you assisted him?" "Yes," Lyra said firmly. "I helped him build it. Because survival mattered more than protocol. Because courage mattered more than fear." Silence filled the chamber. The inspectors exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. Darren held his breath. He knew this was the moment, the point where everything would be decided. Finally, the leader spoke. Your actions cannot be ignored. The council must decide your fate. Until then, you will remain under observation. Darren expected anger or punishment or confinement, but instead, the inspectors simply left, their boots echoing against the metal floor. Days passed, and tension grew. The council debated far away, but their decision would soon arrive. Darren and Lyra continued their duties, though the atmosphere aboard the station was heavy with uncertainty. One night, Darren sat alone in the observation chamber, staring at the stars. The endless void stretched before him, beautiful and silent. He wondered what it all meant. Was humanity ready for the galaxy? Or had he just proven the Council's fears right, that humans were dangerous because they acted without permission? Lyra joined him quietly, her presence calm and steady. You doubt yourself, she said softly. Of course I do, Darren replied. Maybe I crossed a line. Maybe I made things worse for humans. If the Council decides against me, they'll use this as proof that we aren't ready. She looked at him with thoughtful eyes. Or they will see what I saw, that humans bring something new, something the galaxy has forgotten. You faced danger without waiting. You acted with courage. That is not weakness, that is strength. Darren smiled faintly. Strength? Sometimes it just feels like stubbornness. Lyra's lips curved slightly, almost like a smile. Sometimes stubbornness is another word for survival. The Council's message arrived 2 cycles later. The entire station gathered in the central chamber as the inspectors read the decision. The Galactic Council has reviewed the events aboard this station, the lead inspector announced. His voice carried authority, but there was a hint of something else. Respect. Researcher Darren, you violated Council law by constructing unauthorized technology. However, your device prevented catastrophic failure. Without it, this station and all aboard would have been lost. The chamber was silent. Every crew member listened intently. The Council recognizes that while your actions broke protocol, they also demonstrated resourcefulness, courage, and ingenuity uncommon among your species. Therefore, the Council has chosen not to punish you. Instead, your actions will be recorded as evidence of humanity's potential. Further study will be made to evaluate the role of humans in advanced research. Whispers filled the chamber. Some were shocked, some impressed. Darren stood quietly, letting the words sink in. He was not punished. Instead, he had given humanity something rare in the Council's eyes. Recognition. Lyra glanced at him, her eyes calm but glowing faintly with pride. After the assembly, Darren returned to the workshop. The stabilizer still hummed steadily, its glow like a small star trapped within the machine. He placed a hand on its surface, feeling the steady rhythm. This saved us, he said softly. But it was more than just a machine. It was a message. Lyra joined him. A message? Yes, Darren said. That humans aren't helpless. That we can stand on our own, build our own solutions, and face the unknown. The Council may not trust us yet, but now they have to take us seriously. Lyra studied him for a moment. You may have changed the path of your species with this act. Do you realize that? Darren shrugged, a small smile forming. Maybe, or maybe I just fixed a broken power core. But both of them knew it was more than that. Life aboard the station slowly returned to routine. The alarms stopped, the systems ran smoothly, and the fear of collapse faded. Yet something had changed. Darren noticed the way crew members looked at him differently, with respect, sometimes even with admiration. And Lyra, once distant and precise, now spoke to him more often, her curiosity no longer hidden. One evening, as they shared a quiet meal in the galley, Lyra asked a question that lingered in the air like a star in the night sky. Darren, do all humans carry this same determination, This same fire? He thought for a moment before answering. Not always. Some give up. Some fail. But many of us, maybe most of us, keep going. Even when it looks impossible. That's what makes us human. Lyra nodded slowly, as if committing his words to memory. Then perhaps the galaxy should prepare. Because if all humans share even a part of what you showed here, your species may change far more than this one station. In the weeks that followed, reports of Darren's actions reached beyond the station. Other council members debated humanity's future role. Some argued humans were reckless and dangerous, while others pointed to Darren as proof that they could bring new ideas and courage to the galaxy. Darren never sought fame, but he had become a symbol, a single human who refused to wait for permission, who acted with courage when it mattered most. And somewhere deep within the endless stars, humanity's light had begun to shine.